Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful spring break. Today we are looking at section 8.5, and we are going to be factoring polynomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c. It's called a quadratic because of the second degree, and this is a trinomial because there's 1, 2, 3 terms. All right, so a couple things to know. I have a chart set up here for you to use. This is our polynomial, x squared minus 4x minus 12. And we are trying to figure out factors that are going to give us a sum and a product that we want here. All right, so the first thing that you probably will need to do is find out what are all the factors of 12. We're going to look at that constant term and find the factors of 12. I happen to like to list them like this: 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. And the reason I like to do that is it makes sure that I get all of my factors. You notice it goes up from the lowest to the highest here. I don't miss anything because I'm doing it in a certain order. And now I can play around and figure out what I need to get my sum and my product. Now, looking back at the notes, the sum that I want to get here is a -4. That's the middle term in your trinomial. The product that I would like to get is the -12. That is the constant that's at the end of my quadratic. So I'm going to look at factors that are going to give me a sum of -4 and a product of -12. So I'm looking, 3 and 4 does not give me a sum. It's like a sum of 7 or a sum of 1 if I have one be positive and one be negative. 1 and 12 are not going to work. That's going to give me a sum of 13 or a sum of 11. So I'm looking at 2 and 6. So I'm going to write in my factors, 2 and 6, and I'm going to say, okay, when I'm adding, which one of these needs to be negative, or do I need to do anything with the signs? And to add 2 and 6 together to get a -4, I need the 6 to be a negative. So my sum will be 2 plus -6, which is -4. And then when I multiply these two, 2 times a -6, I will get my -12, which is what I want for my product. So how am I going to write out the factors? Well, the factors are going to be the two binomials that you multiply together to get x squared minus 4x minus 12. So I'm going to take x plus 2 because my first factor is a positive 2, and I'm going to do x minus 6 because my second number is a -6. So this is the factored form, x plus 2 times x minus 6. And if you check it by FOIL or the area model, you should end up with x squared minus 4x minus 12. That way you know that you're doing it right. All right, so let's look at the next one. 24 is my constant term, so I want a product of -24 and a sum of +5. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor. Factors of 24, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and 5 doesn't go into it. Now we repeat. Okay, so I am looking for something that is going to, let's see here. My sum is going to be a 5 because that's my middle term, and my product is going to give me a -24. Oh shoot, 5 and a -24. I put those in the wrong spot, but we can fix it. I love whiteout. It's wonderful. Okay, so my sum and my product here. All right, so I need 2 factors that add up to 5 and 2 factors that when I multiply them, I get -24. So looking at the difference, this will add up to 5 if I make one of them positive and one of them negative. And it will make a -24 if I multiply them. So I just got to figure out, does the 3 have to be a negative or the 8 have to be a negative? Well, my sum turns out to be a positive number. It's a +5. So I believe that my 8 is going to be a positive. Or my 8 is going to be a positive, and my 3 is going to be a negative. 8 plus a negative 3 is positive 5. 8 times a negative 3 is negative 24. So writing out the factors, x minus 3, because I'm following the sign, and x plus 5. Or I'm sorry, x plus 8. And again, you can always check it by multiplying it out. Okay. All right, let's look at our next. I'm going to skip to this fourth one right now. X squared minus 12x plus 35. So our sum is going to be a negative 12, and our product is going to be a 35. That's what I'm looking for. So let's look at factors of 35. 1 times 35. 2 doesn't go into 35. 3 does not go into 35. 4, 5, and 7, it looks like. 5 times 7 is 35. Is there anything else? Nope, 6 doesn't go in. So I want to have a sum that makes a negative 12 and a product that makes a positive 35. Well, if I made this a negative and this a negative, negative 5 plus a negative 7 will give me negative 12. And then if I multiply negative 5 times negative 7, a negative times a negative does give me a positive of 35. So that is going to be x minus 5 and x minus 7. And remember, you can always check by multiplying or foiling your two binomials to see if it actually makes your quadratic that you want in the end. All right, so I'm going to pause this for a moment, and I'm going to do the rest of these factors. And if you would try them and then check them against what I have, that would be great. So you guys, here's the completed chart. And really what we're doing here is we're working backwards. We're looking at our quadratic trinomial and pulling it apart with the sum and the product, using factors. And I like to put my factors down on a separate piece of paper like you see here, because then I can reuse those lists of factors. I just circled the ones that we used in this particular example. I guess I forgot 48, but you many times can go back and use the same list of factors depending on what you need. There are two things to note here. Once I figure out my numbers to make my sum and my product, then I figure out who's got to be negative and who's got to be positive in order to make it work. And remember, you can always check by doing FOIL or multiplying the two binomials together. There's two kind of unusual ones here. One was this, x squared plus 12x plus 36. That was x plus 6 and x plus 6, which I could write in a shorter version as x plus 6 quantity squared. Also note on this one, this is a quadratic binomial because there's only two terms. We want to get 0 for our sum. So that means one of my numbers would have to be a positive and one a negative, and they have to be the same numbers. So if you ever run into a situation like this, and you have to have a sum of 0, there's no middle term here, that is the option that you're going to take. All right, let's look at the next page. So now we're going to continue on to example 2. And we are looking at factoring x squared minus xy minus 6y squared. Okay, this is a little bit different because we have variables across the whole thing. So here's what you need to do. I am going to have to split these x's without a doubt, because x times x is going to give me the x squared. Those are your first times your first. I'm going to have to split these y's, because y times y gives you your last term, okay, which is y squared. Mommy's recording right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at 6 and say, what are the factors of 6? I need a sum of a -1, and I need a product of -6. And remember, 6 can be factored as 1 times 6, 2 times 3. And it's looking to me like the difference of 1 lies in the 2 times 3. So I know one of these has to be a 2 and one has to be a 3. Now I just have to figure out who's positive and who's negative. So if I want to add these two together and get a -1 for my sum, the 3 is going to have to be my negative. And the 2 will have to be my positive. Will that give me my product that I want of -6? Yes. So 2 times a -3. So that means I have x plus a 2y and x minus a 3y. And if you check it, you will see that it turns out the same. I'm going to load this video because I'm almost out of time, and then we will do the last 2 examples and then get ready for your homework.